Okay, so this is the Parlor set. Well, so I guess we're just talking about the scenic design and the sets in general for this. So this was the Parlor. I guess I approach design in Second Life the same way I approach it in real life. There really is no difference except for the fact that in Second Life I'm not sending drawings to the shop to get built and I'm not buying paint. But everything I do here in Second Life, I would do in real life. I'm doing historical research. I'm researching textures and colors. I am thinking about how the actors move on stage. I am envisioning blocking patterns. I'm creating levels for the directors to work with and to move actors on. Um, so this set, the Parlor set, is one of the things that is going with Pygmalion here is we have the interior of the set of the room, which you see with the floor pattern and the walls and the kind of very earth tones and wood, but it's a warm wood to kind of give it a natural glow, but yet warm it up with the reds and browns. And then I incorporated some interior elements actually outside the set where you would think there would be sky and things. I actually brought in large wall panels with wallpaper, and again, something that would be appropriate for the time period, something very formal looking kind of behind it. So you kind of have a layered look there. You have the interior, and just when you're expecting exterior, you have more interior. So it kind of becomes the rest of the house, or it becomes a continued interior. And it's kind of distorted back there. It's at angles and it's larger. And we'll see that in the library too. There are additional shelves beyond the shelves that are larger and to a bigger scale to kind of make the room itself seem smaller and to add a sense of larger scale in the world beyond. One of the things that I do for Second Life design, which is not something I would do in real life, is when I'm rendering out a set. I don't want to say that I take detail away, but when you're working in the Second Life medium, without going into extreme detail, the size of the textures that are on your computer affects how the video card in your computer, the viewer's computer render it. Not all of the people who come and see our shows have super fast mega gaming computers. Some people are going on, inexpensive laptops. So I keep the textures to a minimal resolution. I'm not doing necessarily high-res textures in every place. A lot of the textures are repeating as well, because once the computer renders one texture, it can repeat it without any more lag on the video card. So each set has minimal textures in it, enough variety and enough ways of using those textures to create variety. But I'm always thinking about the viewer and not creating lag for our viewers. We don't want their video card to be so bogged down that they can't see the shows. So it's that balance there between creating a world that looks realistic and that is pleasing to look at, but keeping in mind our audience and the fact that they have to see this on the screen. If I were rendering out a set in Photoshop that would be done in real life, there would be probably more detail put into it, and I could spend more time really going into high-res textures that we could then duplicate and I could print out for scenic painters to use. So that's something I'm still kind of learning is walking that line between resolution of textures, not wanting to look too boring and flat, but not wanting to put drag on the video card. So what you see with the sets, I think, represents a nice balance of detail in the set and balancing that with always keeping in mind our viewers. Their computers and not overtaxing their video card. So this is the Parlor. And it has kind of three primary locations. There's the entrance location, stage left, kind of a sitting area with a fireplace center, and then a little desk stage right. Most of the action in this area takes place in the center, but there's entrances and exits on the left side and a few scenes around the desk on the right side. So again, the whole set is used. With Second Life, we keep staircases to a minimum. There's enough levels to create some nice blocking, but the avatars don't necessarily walk down steps gracefully. So there are no grand staircases in here. An avatar going down steps looks kind of like a controlled fall. It's really weird. So 2 or 3 steps is the most that I tend to put into sets. I've done some that are raked as well because that tends to be a little bit smoother, but there are a couple steps going to the stage left area. Design-wise, there are circular platforms on the bottom to contrast with the square and angular looks of the walls. And the large walls beyond. There's also a ceiling up above that we don't show when we live stream it, but the audience in world would be able to see. And those ceiling panels kind of reflect what they reflect what's below. They kind of follow the lines of the patterns below. Um, so keeping the circles down there, they can then match some of the curves of the blocking and just create a nice visual change with the circular platforms in contrast with those angular walls behind. So that's kind of what I was thinking with this. Do we want to look at the library next?
I just wanted to say one thing, and I will switch to the library, and that is that while all your color choices are very period appropriate, they're also really important for Second Life because real light is not easy to come by. And so it's, a very good set of colors for skin tones.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And that's something when I've done a few presentations at conferences and I've shown some classes and things that I teach, the idea of designing for virtual reality. And they always say, well, do you do lighting design? Because in real life, I do lighting as well. And I said, well,
Don't you wish?
there really is no lighting. There is lighting in Second Life, but you have to have your graphics set to the real high end. So a lot of people who are using maybe lower end machines and don't have those uber fast gaming machines, I could do a fantastic lighting design and it would look beautiful. I've done some really neat lighting stuff, but you have to have your graphics set so high to render that lighting model that most people won't see it. So it's not something we do. This set actually, I actually put the lighting model into the set itself. So you can see how the bookcases are kind of shadowy on the sides and they're lighter in the middle. It's almost like there's a spotlight in each one. I actually built the light into the texture. Um, so this one is the library. This is my favorite set. I think of all the shows we've done, this is one of my favorite
Absolutely. Well,
sets.
didn't I say this recently? I want to live
Yes.
in this
Yeah, I
set.
want to live in this set. So you have the curves, you have the big central platform, the nice sweeping curve there, larger platform on stage left, a smaller one stage right. So it kind of mirrors what's happening in the parlor. But it does have a little upstage area where people can walk in. And in the parlor, we had those large walls behind with the wallpaper. With this one, we have the exaggerated bookshelves that are going on behind. And you can see from the scale of the love seat that's sitting there, which is scaled for the avatars, that the bookshelves behind are really high, really tall proportions. So it kind of gives almost a surreal look behind these giant books back there. Then the bookshelves that are behind the actors are scaled appropriately to look like a library. Um, I like this one because it's got that kind of neat little walkway behind that the actors can use. And there's a scene where Eliza walks up there during the show behind that bookshelf, the little elevated area back there. And so you've got some nice levels, some nice dimension created there where the actors can go up and kind of walk behind the shelves. Again, navigating steps for avatars is not the easiest thing in the world, but I think it worked out pretty well here. Where that potted plant is there, I think originally we had talked about having an entrance there, but that didn't end up getting used because the staging just didn't work that way. So that
Yeah.
was filled with a nice potted plant that adds some nice green and pulls some more natural colors into that. Because again, you'd have potted plants in here. It just adds a natural element, and the organic look of the plants kind of break up the hard verticals and horizontals of the floor and the books. I think the darker wood in here makes the set look darker, whereas the parlor, the lighter woods made it look brighter. This one looks darker, which gives the more formal look of the kind of classic library, the English library look. It's very dark, it's very rich, it's very formal looking, while still being open to allow the avatars to walk around and kind of play on here. We spend a lot of time in here as well, kind of in the center area, with a number of entrances and exits being done over on stage left. Um, there's some open space there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of this set, the real classic library look. I love the dark wood tones in here. It just
Mhm.
feels warm and comfortable. The kind of place where you could, like you said, you just want to live in here or just, curl up and take a nap and read a good book and listen to the gramophone over there.
Without a doubt, this is one of my favorite sets ever.
Yeah, mine too.
All right, let's take a look at the first act set, the outdoor set.
We're kind of working backwards, aren't we?
Yeah, it's all right. We come back to the outdoor set at the end. It's coming.
See, if only scene changes in real life would happen this quick.
I know. Boom.
So this one kind of is a little bit different than the other two. I wanted to create the feeling of kind of a busy, crowded street in London. It has, it's very specific. It's on the, it takes place in front of the church here. Um, and so I find it difficult to create very exact locations in Second Life because, the architectural details and things. And again, since we're trying to minimize the amount of rendering that we're imposing on graphics cards, doing very precise sculpts and models sometimes takes a bit of effort on that card. So something generic, looking for the market. Um, so the front of the church here with the single step, to indicate where they would go up. You have the arches that are there again, doing that kind of classic church architecture. You have the crowded carts. You'll have plenty of space for market carts in here and flower vendors and just people on the street. The other thing that I did with this one was we took pictures of London from this time period and just kind of put them up around the back and the walls of the theater just to kind of bring you into the space. I didn't necessarily try to mesh them together to make it look like a surround. They're literally, I wanted them to look like pictures from the time period, which is what they are. So you have that feeling of the bustling market behind. And then you're also, if you're sitting in the theater, you're also surrounded by, you've got the carriage over going that way, the merchants and vendors over here on the other side. So you get that feeling of the busy street, and there's people selling stuff and there's people walking around, without packing the stage with avatars, just to have bodies there. So you have the bodies kind of on the background. And again, I specifically didn't try to blend the architecture, blend the room into these pictures. I've done that a few times where we've actually put a picture on the back and I've built the set to blend into that picture. And that looks pretty cool. But in this case, I just kind of wanted the feeling around. So I took some historic archive pictures and put them around to create that feeling of the bustle around. And I think it does a good job of creating that sense of place and that sense of a lot going on. And then I kept the set fairly simple. I didn't want people go up and look at detailed scroll work. So I did just a very simple canopy over the top. We could have taken the time and put like a really nice marble frieze up there with, figures and Greek gods and things. But to keep the focus down below and on the actors, and not create such a world above where people wanted to cam up and look. So we kept it real simple, with the roof over and the columns, to give the impression of the chapel and the nice cobblestone street there, but to really pull the attention on the actors in front of the background as opposed to people going up and looking. So that was kind of the design decisions for that.
Now, one thing that's really fascinating about this set as the director of this is we gravitated really naturally to the two classes in British society, that Eliza and the other, poor folk are down the step and the
Sure.
rich folk are up the step coming out. And
Yes.
it just sort of happened naturally. And we were halfway through, our preps and we went, yeah, that's how we're doing this. We have to make sure that nobody makes that cross, until they're leaving. So it just
Right.
was very fascinating.
Well, and that's one of those things too. When we talk about how things go together, we spend a lot of time talking about. You and I spend a lot of time talking about how the sets are going to be used, and that's one of those things. It was a happy accident. Had we planned it, we probably could have put a couple more steps in there.
Yeah, maybe, but
But
it just and again, the avatariing, the avatars moving on the stage are not terribly exact, so you
right.
have to be really specific on boundaries.
Right. Well, that's one of the things we found too in rehearsals is that the avatars just sometimes accidentally move themselves into the scenery. So they have to be very aware of where they are on
Yeah,
stage. So that kind of happens too, which, in real life, the actor would just run into the wall. But, that doesn't
exactly.
always
But no,
happen.
no, you
So
can
yeah,
walk
but
right
that
out
too
the
is,
side of the
one
building.
of the things that happens in this medium is they are pretty good about hitting their marks, but they're not exactly the same place every time.
No.
So large areas of openness on the set, whereas in real life on the stage, you'd probably fill all that with furniture. Having minimal set pieces out is sometimes helpful in this because, like you said, the movements aren't as exacting as they would be in real life. They do a good job of hitting their spots and hitting their marks, but sometimes Lag can cause avatars to stop a little bit short or in the wrong spot. So not filling a space and having some empty space for them to move around is often preferable to just filling it with props and furniture and stuff.
Without a doubt, they need some space because actually in some respects as actors, that is the hardest part, getting to your spot because you don't always stop exactly when you thought you would.
Right.
I have
And
to,
in this in this medium, we don't have, on stage, and if we were doing the performance in real life, um, we could put tape on the stage and we can mark you, go walk to this spot, or, spike marks and things, all those tricks we do, or doing marks across the front of the stage to help actors find their mark. We don't
Mhm.
necessarily have that ability here because it's very hard to hide things on stage. Everything is visible. So, and I know in the past there have been a few points where we've done marks and things on stage, but they become very visible. It's hard to disguise those. Whereas on a real stage, you could put a tiny little piece of, like a bright yellow tape, almost as unnoticeable to the audience, but the actors can see it. So, finding marks is not easy in this medium.
No, but we get better at it. Every show we
Absolutely,
do,
we
we
do.
get better.
Yes, and
you know,
especially this show, there's a lot of detail blocking, and when they're giving their
oh wow,
speeches, how
yeah.
they move around, and I think the avatars are getting really good at hitting their marks and moving the avatars within the world of the space.
Yes, and like I say, we get better. We think of other tricks, and people just get more used to it. But these are fabulous sets, and I really wanted to get you recorded with some commentary on them
Thank
because
you.
it's a show that deserves them.
Yes, yeah. This is a show that I have not done in real life. It's one of those that's kind of on the list of shows as a designer. Pygmalion is one of those shows that eventually you do in your career. I had no idea it would be it would be in this medium, so I was really excited to do this show. I've done a production of the musical version of this before, but this is the first time I've done Pygmalion. So being able to do this show and do it here and do the things in Second Life, use some of the big angles and curves and kind of some of the um, properties of this medium that we wouldn't be able to do in real life are kind of fun to do here and to explore. So I was real happy to be able to work on this set here.
Well, thank you. In these difficult times, all the world's live stages are dark and silent and quiet, except one, Tesseraction Live Animation Theater. We've put together an undaunted season where we are going to be premiering a new production every 2 or 3 weeks from now until summer. We start with Pygmalion and we open it on Sunday, April 19th at 2 p.m. Pacific time with a second performance the following Saturday on the 25th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Look for us on Facebook, Tesseraction Theater. We'll see you then.